Why do we keep falling for bubbles? It's not because we're stupid. In fact, what if I told you that being smart is actually the biggest risk to your bank account? Seriously, there is a specific kind of intelligence trap that doesn't care about your PhD or your high-speed trading algorithm. In fact, the smarter you think you are, the faster you tend to walk into the trap. Take the smartest man to ever live, Sir Isaac Newton, the guy who literally mapped the laws of gravity and the universe. Back in 1720, he managed to lose around $4 million in today's money on a company that basically did absolutely nothing. Newton famously muttered, "I can calculate the motions of the heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people." That's the paradox, isn't it? If markets are efficient and investors are rational, why do we keep walking into the same buzzsaw every 20 years? Why do we see the brightest minds on Wall Street with their PhDs and supercomputers doing the financial equivalent of touching a hot stove over and over again? Look, this isn't a story about people being uneducated. It's about what happens when the price of something, anything, starts going up and our collective brains just exit the building. It's about the gravity of greed. In his book, A Short History of Financial Euphoria, John Kenneth Galbraith, a guy with a black belt in economic sarcasm, called this financial euphoria. He realized that financial genius is usually just a short-term reputation fueled by a rising market. In other words, everyone looks like a visionary when the wind is at their back. Today, we're tearing down this speculative machine. First, we're going to walk through the predictable, step-by-step pattern that every single financial bubble follows. Then we're going to dig into the why, uncovering the common denominators, the quirks of crowd psychology, and the behaviors that make this cycle inevitable. Because look, if you think you're too intelligent to be caught in the gears, well, that's usually the first sign that you're next. There is a repeated, almost rhythmic pattern to every episode of Financial Euphoria. It's a sequence that is played out in exactly the same way across centuries, from the tulip fields of Holland to the skyscrapers of Manhattan. To start with, there must be something new. This is the shiny object phase. Every financial disaster begins with a new era event. It's the ultimate defense against common sense. If you can convince people that the old rules don't apply anymore, you can get them to buy just about anything. In the 1630s in Holland, it was a tulip bulb, but not just any bulb, one with a virus that made it look exotic. People stopped seeing it as a flower and started seeing it as a miracle asset. In the 1720s, it was the South Sea Company, which promised vast riches from South American trade that didn't actually exist. The novelty is the secret sauce because it kills memory. If you bring up the last crash, the true believers will just pat you on the head and say, "Oh, you don't understand. We have internet now. We have AI now." As Galbraith pointed out, the perception of the new is the perfect excuse to ignore the history of the old. It's a magic sticker we slap on a bad investment to make the risk disappear. Next up, success attracts belief. This is the FOMO phase. Once the new thing starts making money, the machine starts humming. This is where the early gainers, the people who just got lucky, start posting their wins. It creates social proof, which is a polite way of saying, my neighbor is an absolute moron and he just bought a yacht, so I must be doing something wrong. This isn't just greed, it's the agonizing psychological pain of being the only person in the room who isn't getting rich. Logic gets shoved in a locker and prices go up simply because people are buying. At this stage, anyone who tries to be rational is treated like a total party pooper. Then it gets interesting. There is leverage, or what we call the square wheel. Galbraith noted that the world of finance loves to reinvent the wheel, but usually it's just a slightly more unstable version of the old one. He had a firm rule about this. Finance doesn't actually do innovation. He argued that every breakthrough is really just a new way to create debt secured by some assets. Basically, if you look under the hood of any new financial miracle, it's just a fancy way to create debt that eventually grows way bigger than the actual cash available to pay it back. Every time Wall Street claims they've invented a new way to get rich, they're usually just handing you a shovel and telling you to dig a deeper hole of debt. Now look, in a normal world, a square wheel is a joke. It doesn't roll upward. It's clunky and useless. But imagine you're on a steep enough downhill. That's our rising bull market. In that specific scenario, gravity, or market momentum, does all the work for you. Even a square wheel starts to pick up terrifying speed. Everyone at the bottom of the hill is cheering, thinking you've invented a new law of physics because you're moving so fast. But here is where it gets dangerous. Galbraith pointed out that every single crisis happens because this debt grows until it's dangerously out of scale with the actual cash available to pay it back. We've seen this movie before. In the 1920s, the square wheel was margin debt and giant holding companies that issued bonds and preferred stock just to buy more stock. In the 1980s, it was rebranded as junk bond to fuel a massive takeover boom. By 2008, it was the alphabet soup of securitization: CDOs, MBS, and CDS. Different names, same old trick of over-leveraging real estate assets until the scale tipped. It always feels like progress. It feels like you've hacked the system. It feels like magic, until the hill levels out. The moment that downhill slope disappears, you realize you aren't an innovator, you're just a guy sitting on a defective vehicle that's about to stop dead and throw you over the handlebars. And finally, the bubble runs out of air, and the fall cannot be gradual. People always talk about a soft landing, but Galbraith's response was total nonsense. A collapse must be a bang, never a whimper. Think of a crowded theater where everyone is staring at one tiny exit door labeled liquidity. There are true believers who think the show will never end, and astute traders who think they're fast enough to beat the crowd to the door. When the first spark of doubt hits, those traders don't walk, they sprint. When the believers see the smart guys sprinting, they panic too. Suddenly, everyone is trying to sell at once, but nobody is buying. The square wheel of leverage that made you rich on the way down now ensures you can't stop the slide. The machine doesn't just stop, it disintegrates. If we've seen this movie before, why do we keep buying tickets? If the pattern is this obvious, why haven't we learned? It's because the machine is powered by permanent features of human psychology. Let's look at the common denominators. For starters, there's financial dementia, or the 20-year memory hole. The human brain has a built-in delete button for financial pain that activates about every 20 years. Why 20 years? Because that's just long enough for the people who got wrecked in the last crash to retire. A new crop of young geniuses arrives thinking, those old guys were just cautious dinosaurs. They didn't have the tools we have today. Confidence resets. The chalkboard is wiped clean. We don't learn from history, we just wait for the people who remember it to leave the room. Then there's the fact that the market is sustained by two permanent camps. Every bubble is a tag team effort between the believers and the traders. The believers genuinely think tulips are the future of humanity. The traders provide the acceleration. They know it's a bubble, but they're sure they can jump off the train at 100 miles per hour and land on their feet. Both are essential. Both end up in the same ditch, arguing about whose fault it was. On top of that, public opinion acts as a force multiplier. During a bubble, skepticism is actually treated as a social crime. If you point out that the emperor has no clothes, the crowd doesn't thank you, they ridicule you. Respectable financial opinion will call you cynical or unimaginative. You're the party pooper at the greatest rager in history. This social pressure is a powerful drug that forces even sane people to shut up and buy in. Here's where it gets dangerous. We have a habit of confusing IQ with a dollar bill. In our society, if you control a lot of money, we assume you must be wise. But as Galbraith notes, having a lot of money often just means you were foolishly indifferent to risk at exactly the right time. In a bull market, the most reckless gambler makes the most money. We see their bank account and assume they have a vision when they might just be a gambler who hasn't hit his losing streak yet. Money confers a halo that makes even the most bird-brained ideas sound like gospel. It's not just individuals either. There's the institutional halo effect. It's not just individuals, we do this with buildings too. If a bank is tall enough and has enough marble in the lobby, we assume the people inside are smarter than us. We think, surely the guys at the 200-year-old firm wouldn't do something stupid, except they do, all the time. Their massive scale just allows them to make institutional-sized mistakes. Size doesn't imply judgment, it just implies that when they fall, they're going to take out 3 city blocks. Then you've got the rise of genius before the fall. Financial genius is a temporary condition. It's a crown that the market puts on your head right before the trap door opens. If you see someone being hailed as a prophet on a magazine cover, check their feet. They are almost always standing on a trap door that's about to swing open. In 1929, the most respected economists were saying prices had reached a permanently high plateau just weeks before the crash. But when the music finally stops, we enter the Scapegoat Olympics. When the crash finally happens, we don't look in the mirror. Instead, we blame the regulators, the short sellers, the computers, or the tax code. We treat the crash like an external virus, ignoring the fact that the system itself was the virus. But admitting that would mean admitting we were all part of the madness, and that's no fun for anyone's ego. Even then, we tend to reform the tools but ignore the disease. Because we blame the tools, we pass new laws and install new safety pipes on the speculative machine, but we never address the human drive for euphoria. It's like putting a high-tech digital thermometer on a patient with a recurring fever. The thermometer is more accurate, but the patient is still going to get sick. We treat the symptoms and ignore the disease. And the big one, the absolute kicker, is the uncomfortable ending, resolute skepticism. Galbraith's final conclusion is a bit of a gut punch. Speculative euphoria is a permanent feature of the system. You can't regulate it away. The machine is being rebuilt right now. Maybe it's in AI, maybe it's in real estate, or maybe it's in something we haven't even named yet. The shiny object will change, but the square wheels remain the same. The only real defense, the only thing that keeps you from being crushed, is what he calls resolute skepticism. It means refusing to believe that money equals wisdom. It means staying calm when everyone else is screaming innovation. It means having the courage to be the only person at the party who realizes the floor is about to give way. If you can hold on to that shield, you might not be the genius of the year, but when the bang happens, and it always happens, you'll be the only one standing outside the theater watching the geniuses fight for the exit. If you found this useful, or if you think I'm the one suffering from financial dementia, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your skeptical takes on the current market. And hey, if you want to help us fight the speculative machine, go ahead and hit that like button and share this with a friend who might be getting a little too excited about the next shiny object. Stay skeptical. We'll see you in the next one.